So I have with me today both Laura Belazis and Matt Schnarr from the CKP National Office as well to help me present this webinar in hopes that we can make this sort of a back-to-school call. And for those of you who haven't met all of us before, let them introduce themselves. You've probably talked to me at least on a webinar, if not email, but you may not have talked to the other two. So first up is going to be Matt, and he is our Expansion and Partnerships Manager over here at CKP, which means that it's a pretty self-explanatory title, I guess, but he's in charge of all of our expansion, which you probably know we are doing rapidly, and he'll talk a little bit about that. And he's also in charge of our partnerships with partner organizations like Youth Service America, Teach for America, and other organizations that work with similar demographics like we do, aka college students. So Matt, I need to unmute you so you could talk. Give me 1 second. Technical difficulties. All right. Go ahead, Matt.
Thanks, Linda. All right, great. So like Linda said, I'm just going to quickly begin this. I think a lot of you probably know a lot of this already, but for those that don't, just giving a good refresher on, a little bit about our network and our family that you're a part of. So as you might have heard, we've been doing a lot of expansion lately. We've had some exciting openings, especially the last few weeks. So as of yesterday, we just opened our 38th campus station, and then the end of next week, we'll be opening our 39th, and then in October, we have quite a few openings set up as well. So we're on track to move really quickly over these next few months and get a lot more campus kitchens joining us very soon, which is really exciting. So something I think I always encourage, well, I'm hearing my own self, my feedback. Linda, are you muted? Okay. Sorry. So something I typically talk to or explain to campus kitchens whenever I go visit or do openings or anything like that is, reminding them that they're not doing this alone, that they are a part of a larger network and a part of a larger movement that's happening across the country. And I know most of you are probably aware of that to some degree, and as you can see on the screen here, we have our compiled stats as a network from the last year, and they're pretty staggering in a really great way. So, I mean, you all can read, but you can see over the last academic year, we had nearly 20,000 student volunteers, and those volunteers, whether they were part of the leadership team or just regular volunteers or maybe shift leaders, they contributed over 70,000 hours of service to their campus kitchens, respectively. And with that, they were able to recover over 900,000 pounds of food, which I think is just a crazy number to think about, all that food that would otherwise be going to waste that we've recovered and been able to then transform into nearly 300,000 nutritious and balanced meals that we're serving our respective communities. And those communities, that last year alone served about 8,500 individual clients at over 300 agencies, which, if you really break that down, adds over $1 million of economic value back into our communities that we're serving, and really allows all those different agencies to focus, their time and resources and money on their actual mission and empowering their clients and doing what they do best, so that we can take care of the meal portion. So that's really huge, and we all know that we don't just focus on just the numbers of meals, and we have greater impacts with what we do beyond the meals, but still you can kind of just take a glimpse and see the impact that we've had as a network. And I think that's something that's really powerful, and that you can kind of boast about, that you are part of this larger movement. And the cool thing is, and how this does, I also again kind of tie into the rest of this webinar in regards to reporting, is the way we're able to get these great numbers, and we use these numbers not only to make cool infographics like this, but also to help get funding to then funnel down to you all, so we can present these numbers to potential funders and be able to really show the impact that we have on a national level, so that we can then get money to give you money and do sub-grants and great things, and other, not only money, but other practical resources and other types of things like that. So the great thing is that you all also, if you're interested and have been compliant the whole year, meaning you've turned in all of your monthly reports, we can create an infographic just like this for you all, but just specific to your school with your numbers. So I think Linda actually has sent out a couple of those today, even, for those that have all their reports in from last year. So if that's something that you're interested in, filling out these reports is a great way to get it. So Yeah, I think my very last thing that I will kind of say about this, and it's only a plug for my own position is regarding expansion, is that as we are looking to expand even more, I'm working with over 100, nearly 200 schools in our pipeline that have expressed interest in starting a program, starting a campus kitchen program on their campus. But if you all have friends or family or know other folks on other campuses, high school or colleges, that would be interested in this, you guys are our perfect and best kind of liaisons and ambassadors since you know the program intimately. So if anyone you know that might be interested in this, you can definitely point them to our national website in the Start a Campus Kitchen page, or you can direct them directly to me, and I can take it from there. But I'll always appreciate those that are already in the family passing along information to others. So that's kind of my final plug for that.
Super. Thanks, Matt. Like you said, I am working on making those infographics. I have done about 3 of them. So if you haven't gotten an email from me, don't panic. I'm going through and I'm making one for everyone that already has all 12 reports in. So if you do not operate over the summer, in order to get an infographic, I would need 12 reports, so that means you would need to submit a blank report, which Laura will talk about in a couple minutes. And I will answer any questions that you have about that, and she will at the end. So don't worry. So with that, I would like to pass the torch over to Laura Belazis. For those of you who haven't met her, Laura is our Associate Director of Training and Evaluation. So reporting and compliance and all of those wonderful things are totally in her wheelhouse. So she's going to talk about them with you today.
Hi, everybody. It's so great to have so many of you with us today. We are going to start off in our Campus Kitchen Pantry, so hopefully all of you have explored the pantry already. If not, then talk to us. We can get you access. And the things we're going to talk about are over here in our Financials and Reporting tab. So the first thing we're going to talk about is our compliance schedule. You also got that in your back-to-school boxes. I hope everybody has opened their back-to-school box and found all those fun and exciting things there. So the compliance schedule, as we call it, has all the things that are required to be a campus kitchen, and then also the benefits of being part of this big and wonderful network. So this first page are all the requirements, and so the first is monthly reports. We talk about those a lot. As Matt was just showing our beautiful infographic, that's where those numbers come from. And these are the numbers that we take to our funders so we can create other really cool opportunities for you. That turns into our conference in the spring, that turns into boot camp in August, and then into all of our sub-grant opportunities so that we can give you extra opportunities to grow your operations and keep doing and keep expanding all of the amazing things that you're doing. So the next thing on here are some of the annual updates. We ask you to check in with your partner agencies once a year, either if they're a new partner agency, to survey them for the first time, if they're an established agency, to update for this year. And then there's an annual campus kitchen survey that we ask you to do. The next piece is a safety and sanitation audit, and that comes up in March. You all have a great privilege of serving people in your community, and it's also having that privilege also comes with the responsibility of making sure that operations are safe for our clients. And so we ask that you do a safety and sanitation audit once a year to go over all of your operations. Then there's a section on press and publicity. Then there's the affiliate fee schedule, so if you don't know what schedule you're on, that information is here. And then information about your contracts. We now have automatically renewing contracts, so if yours is up for renewal, we can talk to you about that. The next page of this are some of the great benefits of being part of this network. The first are workshops and training calls, so all of you today are taking advantage of today's workshop. You can find on the pantry the list of all of our upcoming workshops for the coming year. We have some on the backpack programs. We have some on grant opportunities, so take a look at that and see which ones are going to be real assets to your campus kitchens. We also love having campus kitchens involved in those and leading those, so if there's anything that you want to train other campus kitchens about, talk to us about that. As November comes closer, you'll hear a lot more about Turkey Palooza. In the spring, you'll hear more about raised dough. And then many of you have already heard that in April, our annual conference, Food Waste and Hunger Summit, is going to take place at UGA. So the campus kitchen at UGA is going to be hosting. I think that'll be a really awesome opportunity for all of us to get together. Then there is yearly goal setting. So at the end of the school year, you can think back over your operations for the year and then think about how you can make sure that you'll have a successful transition, especially if your leadership team is turning over with people graduating. And then the last thing on this page is boot camp. A lot of you were able to attend boot camp in August, and we were already looking forward and thinking about next year's. So the last page are some of our opportunities. A lot of you are already on Volunteer Hub. If you're not, we have this opportunity for all of our campus kitchens who can have this volunteer management software for free. So talk to us about that if you're interested. And then this goes into a little more detail on some of our grant opportunities, our AARP subgrant, Ameriprise, and then we talked about talking to our funders about new opportunities and new things that we can offer to you. And so here's one of those new ones is Rural Hunger Solution Subgrants. So we have a funder who's interested in providing subgrants to those of you who are in rural communities. So if that's somewhere you are, think about that in the future. These are great things to talk to your program managers about. And remember that fulfilling those requirements on the first page, things like turning in your monthly reports on time, those are all things that are really important in order to be a good candidate for one of these subgrants. And then the final thing on here you'll hear more about as we get closer to Turkey Palooza, but we have a great new opportunity for you to do a free online food drive through You Give Goods. Does anybody have any questions about our compliance schedule? Nope. All right, then I'll take us back to the pantry. Also on this, oh, sorry, I think Linda just unmuted everybody. Did we have any questions?
I don't think there were any questions. I just accidentally muted you back, so keep going.
Okay. So back on the pantry, this is a great place to find resources. In here we have a link to an introduction to Apricot, which looks like this, and that'll walk you through how to log in. We'll also go through that in this webinar, but if you ever need to refer back, that's a good place to look. And then it also has a link to our Apricot reporting portal. You can also find this on our main website. So once you log into Apricot, you'll use your Campus Kitchen email and password to log in. And if you have any problems finding that, talk to me or talk to your program manager, and we can get you connected. So let's pick a campus kitchen. So let's pick on Northwestern. So this is what your Apricot login will look like. And this is your primary dashboard. And so the first piece of this gives you some general tips on how to use Apricot and how to use your dashboard. The next section is going to have information about training. We'll have the link to this webinar here. There's that same training document that I showed you. And then here's my email address. If you have any problems or questions or things you want to learn more about, talk to your program manager or send me an email. The next thing we'll have on here are upcoming dates. So that'll tell you, what reports are coming up or other things that are going on throughout the network. So if you want to learn more about our Join the Movement campaign, that's right there. And that'll have other things like subgrant opportunities, registration for conference. So keep an eye out for upcoming dates there. The next thing that you'll see down here is your contact information. If you don't recognize the name of the person there, that's probably a good time to update this. It's really easy to update. You just click on your name in blue. And then that takes you to your profile. And you can just update the contact information in there. And then at the top right, click Save. The other things we have in your profile are information about your Campus Kitchen operations and about your Campus Kitchen programs. And this is really helpful for us. For example, if you are doing youth nutrition education and we have other schools who are interested in doing the same thing, this is a great way for us to connect you so we can learn from all the great things that you're doing and you can be a teacher for other Campus Kitchens. It's also another great way for us to think about future subgrants and future opportunities that we want to offer to you. Okay. So the next thing you'll see on here is a graph, and this shows you specifically for your operations all the things you did in the last school year. We'll be creating new graphs for the current school year, and if there are particular things that you want to see, let us know and we can build that. The next two sections on here are all about monthly reports, and so that's the main reason you're going to be logging into Apricot most frequently. So this is hopefully fairly self-explanatory. If you want to create a new program report, you just click on Create Report. So here we are under Northwestern's, and at the moment, this is all you see on your screen. You're not going to see the rest of the report until you answer these two questions. So did you have operations this month? So let's say Northwestern, Samantha's putting in her September report. So September 2014. Did she have operations this month? Yes. Did they have beyond the meal activities this month? We'll say yes. And suddenly you see all of this information below. Now, one thing to keep in mind as you start doing your reports, a lot of you have already done this, so that's wonderful. Some of you are new Campus Kitchens, and so you haven't had a chance to do this yet. There are little tooltips, these little question marks. If you hover over them with your mouse, that'll give you some helpful information about filling out that particular metric. So for total number of volunteers here, for example, it says the total number of volunteers is the number of volunteer instances. So for example, if you have a volunteer who comes in every Tuesday, and there are 4 Tuesdays this month, they get counted 4 times. And that's different from number of new volunteers. It tells you here that that's essentially the number of new volunteer waivers you collect. So that new volunteer only gets counted the very first time they volunteer. Then we ask you to categorize your volunteers. That's not necessarily the same total number up here, because there may be a little bit of overlap. You know, a senior volunteer may also be a community volunteer. And then we have a food resources section. This is a little bit different from last year. We have a few extra categories. We're getting more interested in, you know, food being recovered from dining and how much food we're getting from different dining service providers. This is something that some of our Campus Kitchens ask for us from time to time. For example, if your dining contract is up for renewal and your school is thinking about changing dining service providers, this is an opportunity for you to ask us, you know, what are the numbers? You know, how much food gets recovered from Sodexo versus Aramark versus Chartwells? And you can make recommendations to the leadership of your school on the future of dining. And if anybody has any questions about which category food that they're receiving should go in, that's a great question for your program manager, and you're also always welcome to reach out to me. It should be fairly self-explanatory, but every now and then you get an item that's a little bit confusing. Use your best judgment and ask us if you have any questions.
Hey, Laura.
Yes.
While we're talking about food, and I'm sorry if you said this, but it would be awesome if you could say it again, what we mean by when we say raw.
Yes, that's a great question. So raw doesn't necessarily need to be raw chicken. You know, that can be anything that's not a prepared food product in your kitchen. So that could be, you know, if you get a bag of flour, if that you get a donation of fresh vegetables, if you get a donation of, you know, cans of beans, those are all things that go into that raw product category. So anything that you're not going to be cooking and you're not going to be processing into a new meal goes in that raw product category. Sorry, did I say that backwards? Anything that you are going to be cooking, excuse me, strike that, reverse it. Anything that you are going to be re-preparing and cooking in your kitchen goes into this raw product category. Anything that comes already prepared goes into this prepared category. If it comes from dining, it goes up here. And then if it's other prepared food that comes from other sources, like local restaurants, that would go right here. Next, we have our meals. So regular meals are meals that go out. They may be weekly or, you know, biweekly or monthly. Sometimes you may have extra holiday events, often around Thanksgiving or Martin Luther King Day, or, you know, extra holidays where you do a huge number of meals or a small number of meals that don't go just to your regular shifts, to your regular clients, and those would go in your extra or holiday meal category. We've had a couple questions about other meals that some Campus Kitchens do. Some of you do some really cool projects where you do, say, a meal packing event for an international aid group where you're making maybe 10,000 meals all in one day, but they're not going to your clients in your community. They're being shipped out by another organization to a different community. Those ones we wouldn't actually count here. They would go into your special programs. But anything that is serving your clients in your community goes here under meals and food distribution. Next, we get to clients. So we talk about the agencies that you serve and the individuals you serve. And so notice there are more tooltips here to help you answer those questions. And then we ask you to categorize your clients. Are they seniors? Are they youth? Are they homeless? And again, there may be some overlap here. You may have youth clients who are homeless or senior clients who are homeless. Now, does anybody have any questions about these first few parts of the report?
Unmuted.
This is Jenny from Washington. I just realized that I have been reporting some things incorrectly, like the number of volunteers. I only count volunteers once, even if they've come in multiple times. Is that something you want us to change how we've been reporting, even though it's going to make our numbers look very different, or continue with what we've been doing?
If possible, I would try to make everything align with the directions here. So I would change how you've been reporting it in Apricot.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, then we'll move on to programs. So since we clicked yes at the top, did we have Beyond the Meal programs this month? This box populated here, and so we're able to choose our programs. So say Samantha at Northwestern had nutrition education, and say they delivered part of Building Blocks for Healthy Kids. You know, maybe they had this program every Monday for 4 weeks, so they did it 4 times. And then she can estimate how many clients participated. So say she had 30 youth participants, and then maybe 5 parents came along. So you'll notice that for some of these number fields, the totals are going to calculate for you. So for any of the ones that there's no overlap, it'll already calculate the total. And then you can write a description of your program here. And then anytime you start filling this out, it's going to create another box below. So if you had a second program, you could fill that out here. If you didn't have another program, you could either select no additional programs, or you can just leave it blank. And then at the bottom, you have a notes field. So this is a great place to tell us about anything that went on that month. You know, whether you started a new relationship with a new client agency, or you did a new program for the first time, or you really hit a record number, or some volunteer or client gave you a really great quote, or was really, really excited about something. This is a great place to put that. We love reading your reports, or at least I know I do, and hearing about all the great things that you're doing from month to month. So the more information in here, the more fun we have learning all about the cool things that you're doing. So any other questions about monthly reports? Okay. So one thing that I wanted to mention here was that sometimes you may have different people at your campus kitchen who do different parts of this report. So maybe you have one person who puts in your volunteer numbers, and you have somebody else who puts in your food recovery. Now what happens if I've saved one part of my report, but I haven't finished yet? So I'm going to create a September report for Samantha. So I'm going to click Save. So it's really important every time you leave this page to make sure you save what you've done so you don't have to go back in. So let's go back to our main page here, and I'm going to refresh the page. So now we'll see under View Your Most Recent Monthly Program Report, September 2014. 5 minutes ago that said August. So I'm going to click on September. And that's going to take me right back to this report that I was working on. So that's the easiest way if you started a report but you haven't finished it to go back and see it there. And so we'll see that we have the information I put in about building blocks, but none of my other information. Now, this is great if you want to see your most recent report, but some of you may be wondering, well, how do I see the rest of my reports? And that's easy. There are also some instructions up here. You would just click on CKP Profile right here at the top, and then you're going to see your name. And once you see your name, click on that. And here are all of the records for Northwestern. So for example, here are your monthly program reports. So I can click down there. I'm going to filter that by year. And so here are all of my 2014 reports. If I want to go in and edit June, if I want to go in and edit July, I can do that really easily just by clicking on the month. You may notice that the month order doesn't really make sense here. I'm working on the Apricot development team about that, so I apologize if that's a little bit confusing right now, but we are working on fixing it. So you'll see your other types of records here, and we talked a little bit in that compliance schedule about your annual campus kitchen survey and your annual client surveys. That's where these will go in Apricot. And so you're able later to go back and look at those. Does anybody have any questions about accessing your documents here?
We do have a question. How would you report pantry food staples donated from a food drive held by another organization?
Okay, so the big question there, if you're getting pantry staples and you're doing this event for another organization, is the question is about food coming in or food going out? Let me ask that again.
Coming in.
Okay, so let me pull up a monthly program report. Okay, so you have received pantry staples, and they did not come from dining. They came from somewhere else, but not from a food bank. Is that correct?
Right, food drive.
A food drive.
Someone else hosted for you because they were feeling so generous.
Oh, that's wonderful. So if you receive, so that would be food donations, so say things that people purchased for you. Those could go in food donated from food banks. It's not exactly a food bank, but it's the same sort of thing. And so that is a donation as opposed to food that's recovered. But sometimes you may be getting, for example, at the end of the school year, you may have students, emptying out their dorm rooms, and they may have food that they were otherwise going to throw away. Then that would probably be best to put here in this pounds of other food recovered, and that excludes dining. Sometimes you may have a food drive that has a combination of the two, so I would say just use your best judgment. If you think that most of it is food that was purchased for you, I would put it here. If it was food that otherwise might have gone to waste, or if people might have been throwing out from their houses, then I would put that here.
Yeah, so I just want to emphasize what Laura just said. As you can probably tell, we're trying to do a little bit better of a job differentiating what food we recover that would have been thrown away, and then what food we're also obtaining from whatever means and using for our meals, but it wouldn't necessarily have been wasted had we not recovered it. That's just so that we can report a little bit more accurately and make other statements that are a little bit more accurate about our incoming and outgoing product. So I don't think it's probably worth really killing yourselves over trying to differentiate each ounce of food you're receiving, but just do your best and make your best judgment call on the different items that are coming into your kitchen.
That was a great question. Now, thank you. And Linda, thanks for more clarification. Any other questions about monthly reports or viewing your other documents? Nope. All right, then we'll move on from there. So the next thing I'm going to show you are reports. You can always go back to this home screen by clicking on My Apricot right here at the top. So reports you'll find under this handy-dandy little My Reports tool. You don't need to worry too much about your dashboards. That's just what shows up on your main screen. So the other thing here are your campus kitchen reports. So if you click on the little arrow, that'll expand that. And so I put together a few reports that I thought would be useful to you. But if there are other things that you think about along the line that you're not really finding here, talk to me about that or talk to your program managers, and we can certainly create some other reports for you. So the ones you have here are your there's a little bit of a typo. That's not 2104. That should be 2014, so I'll fix that right after this call. So your 2014 monthly reports. That's going to be every report that you put in from January until today. Then you have your 2013-2014 academic year, so everything from the last school year. And that's going to have 12 reports in it, or it should. And then we have 2014-2015. So far that'll only have July and August, but throughout the year that'll keep adding new reports to that. And then you have this one up here, all monthly program reports. So that has every report you've ever done. We started using CKP and now Apricot in 2012. And so all of your monthly reports from 2012 are in here. And then we've also gone in and imported all of your numbers from 2011 in one report. And then all of your numbers from when your campus kitchen started through 2010. And I'll show you that when we get to this one. So I'll just start out with one of these reports. So here's 2013-2014. If you want to look at that one, you just go to Actions and click Run. And so here I have all of Northwestern's reports from July of 2013 through the end of the academic year. So what can I do with that? One thing I can do is print. Click on print here. That gives you a few more options. You can get rid of, all of this information at the top by just unclicking these here. You can change the font size in your table. And so if you just want to print all of your reports from the last year or all the information from that, that's a really easy way of doing it. If you want to have this, in Excel or in an easier to manipulate form, you can just click on Export here. So I'm going to open this. All right, and here are all of Northwestern's reports from July 2013 through June 2014. So let's look at this one, the all monthly program report. So this one you'll see has everything from 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014. Let me export this, a little easier to see. So here are all of Northwestern's reports. So you'll notice that there's one here that doesn't have a month. This is all of the 2011 data. And this is actually, the reason it doesn't have a month is before Apricot, we don't have all of the individual monthly reports saved separately. We just have all of that data compiled into one. So you'll see that here under 2011. So that'll be over, for example, here for pounds of prepared food, that's a really big number. It's not just 1 month, that's a whole year worth of data together. And then when you pull this report, you'll also have the opportunity to see, you'll see another one that just has, let me delete this. Export that again. So we weren't seeing that 2010 because 2010 was getting filtered out. So you have another one here for 2010. This is actually not just 2010. It is all of your inception data, from the date your campus kitchen opened through the end of 2010. And then this one here is all of your information for 2011. And then after that, we started CKP, and then we started Apricot, and you have a month-by-month breakdown. But that may be a little bit confusing, so if you have any questions about that, feel free to talk to me. And then, once you're here in Excel, you can go back through and you can look at, say, the total of, every pound of food you've ever recovered, which for Northwestern is a great number. Okay. So one more thing I'll show you here. Really quickly, I'll show you some filters. If this is something you're interested in learning more about, I'm happy to go over with this with you individually. So next to this little filter button here, there's a plus. So if I click on the plus sign, if I want to see, for example, only the year 2013, this little matches any of filter is really useful. So I'm going to say any report in 2013. I'll click apply. So now it's filtering by 2013, and I'll only see reports from 2013. And then you could do the same things with printing or exporting. So these are the main reports that I have for you, but again, if there's anything else that you would like to see, let me know. Do we have any questions about how to pull reports, or if there are any reports that you would like to be able to pull that you're not seeing here? Sometimes you may get a question from, your university leadership, how many meals have you served, since you started on our campus? And this is an easy way of answering those questions.
We have a question. Can we see blank copies of the reports?
By blank copies of that report, do you mean if you filled out a report and had zeros for your numbers? Like if you didn't have operations in July or over the summer?
This person is typing because they're web-based. So if Minkatie, you could clarify a little bit. Oh, especially for the sanitation report in March. So are you looking to see, like, could you print it out and fill it out with, like, a pen and then go back to put it in Apricot? Is that what you're asking? So we know what to expect. Yeah, to prepare.
So right now, those aren't active for you in Apricot, but we can certainly get copies of that to you if you want to see it in advance. So that would be something to ask your program manager about.
So let's show where the safety and sanitation audit for that particular report is, Laura, in the pantry.
Sure. All right, so once you're in the Campus Kitchen Pantry, you have here CKP Safety and Sanitation Audit. Click on View. And so here's what that looks like. There are a lot of pages, I won't go through it all, but you can take a quick look at that there. And then in Apricot, we haven't put it in here yet. Oh, you're welcome. We haven't put it in here yet because it's too far away from March, but as it gets closer, you'll start seeing an update here. And then we'll put another box here below so you can just really easily put in your next safety and sanitation audit. And then if you want to go back and look at what you put in later, you can go to your CKP profile. And then you'll be able to find your old safety and sanitation audits here.
So just to be clear, everyone, the safety and sanitation audit form itself, the questions itself, are not like a monthly report. You don't fill them in cell by cell in Apricot. You download the form out of the pantry, fill it out, save it, and then upload the completed form to Apricot when you're done. So it's a little different. That's how it was in CTK as well. So.
And that'll be true of several of our other surveys and reports throughout the year, but as each of those approaches, we'll give you a lot more information about them. Okay, any other questions? So one thing that I wanted to ask all of you about is HACCP. So that's something that all of you do regularly in your campus kitchens. And we've been throwing around the idea of, what would it look like and would it be useful if we put HACCP into Apricot? And we wouldn't necessarily put all of your HACCP forms there. Some of them, it might be easier to have a printout in your campus kitchen. But some of them, it might be nice for you to be able to, on a computer or on a tablet or on a smartphone, to be able to put in that information. And then you could pull a report, and it would put together all of your shifts for the month and calculate, say, your new volunteers, your total number of volunteers, your pounds of food from dining, your et cetera, et cetera. So I'll just show you what one of those might look like. And again, this is a prototype. It's not something that's currently available. So here is, say your C1 cooking shift. You would be able to put in, your date, your shift captain, your volunteers, what your meals were, your temperatures, and then all of your checkout items. So this is just something to think about, and so I wanted to talk to all of you and see what you thought about this, if you think it would be useful to do your HACCP paperwork in Apricot, and which of the forms you think might be useful for you here, and which ones might not be useful. So does anybody have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, so things that we might want to hear from you are, do you have computer, internet, tablet, whatever access in the kitchen? If the answer is no and you never will, then is this absolutely not helpful for you? Is it a possibility if you don't have it already? Any of those sort of considerations. Mankato says yes, please. But what are any other thoughts about us doing this?
And I'll let you think about that for just a minute. If I'm in the pantry here and I go to our HACCP forms, there are some of these forms that might be really useful. And then there are others, let's pull up one here. Would it be useful to have something that's in this format in Apricot? Or would it be really more useful just to have, the things like the check-in forms where you're just filling out some numbers? So does anybody have an opinion on whether having all of them would be great or just having some of them, or if you like having your hard copies? And some of your campus kitchens may already have other systems other than just the paperwork. If you've put things into Google spreadsheets, or I know one campus kitchen has an app that they've developed. Somebody says items that require signatures might be difficult. However, it might be nice to have something to email to the donor. Okay.
Like a receipt.
Yep.
It's a good thought.
That is a good thought. And that's something we might be able to set up in here. I know Apricot has some functionality for e-signatures, so we can definitely look into that. All right, somebody likes having the main sheet online. And by main sheet, do you mean the check-in forms like this one? Oops.
Yes, the check-in form.
Okay.
Oh, hold on. All right. At IUPUI, we like anything that doesn't waste paper. We hear that?
Me too.
Someone else said, it'd be nice to enter the information for these shifts to keep track of volunteers.
Okay. So that's a lot of supportive feedback. So what we might do is start developing these and then pilot them in a couple of Campus Kitchens to make sure it works. And then after that, we can start rolling it out to Campus Kitchens. But this would be a great thing along the way for us to, ask you for feedback. And so we'll definitely be checking in with you about that. Are there any other thoughts about either HACCP or about Apricot in general?
All right, so we're pretty much, that's everything that we wanted to tell you guys today. And I think Laura addressed most, if not all, of the questions that you all submitted when you registered. So if there are any other last-minute questions, comments, anything, this is the time. We would love to hear them. All right, it sounds like not. Like Laura said, you can contact her about Apricot all the time, anytime. I know I do. And she is your go-to woman to figure this out. Your program manager also, of course, knows Apricot and can walk you through things if you need. So Laura's a great resource. Your program manager is a great resource. The pantry is a great resource. There is that document that Laura referenced to, that PDF, that introduction to Apricot that walks you through exactly like we just did today if you need it to kind of go side by side between you and Apricot the first time you're doing it, or the 5th time you're doing it if you're like me and can't figure things out sometimes. That's cool too. So all right. So